Okay, I guess we're underway here. I want to welcome everybody to what is the inaugural podcast for an idea that I've had for a very long time. I call it the 76. It's the most recent iteration of the movement. Um, I want to kind of get into where this came from, but first, what it is. I wondered one time, several years ago, are we really at a point in this country and I guess more broadly the world where we are at one another's throats and we kind of hate each other? And just to use the most obvious example, liberals versus conservatives, um, are we at the point of civil war and or national divorce, which at the time was a much more common those were much more common concepts that were thrown out there. And it seemed to be in talking with people around the country that was in fact where we were. And going back at the time, I was traveling a lot. I had a lot of free time. I traveled from really Sunday afternoon or evening throughout the entire week. I was out of town, away from my family, and so I had a lot of time on planes and in hotel rooms back on Friday night, the whole week, pretty much every week, to think about the world and ideas and business ideas and drew up a lot of PowerPoints and spreadsheets and tried to figure out how to stop traveling so much as I was watching my kids grow up and without me. This was during COVID, actually, when a lot of people were coming home. I was out on the road, befriending the Lonely United and Marriott people. Um, the, the answer that I had, I think, was that no, we really don't, and I feel very strongly that we don't today, and increasingly came to this conclusion or built up that belief over the years as I've thought about it more and more, and as I've shared this idea with a lot of people. This has been coming for some time, and I'm happy to be recording this first um, show to an audience of zero right now, but I'm hopeful and quite expectant that this will grow into something that is much more meaningful. And I welcome this is going to be, as I said, a movement, and I think we can really make a difference with this. The feedback that I've gotten has been outstanding and really almost without exception. People of very different political beliefs and social standing, or however you want to, you know, slice and dice us as our politicians and so forth, which I will get into extensively on this program with guests. And I have a co-host that you'll meet later, and we have a lot to talk about. But again, back to the genesis, it's just I didn't believe that we as Americans really hated each other as much as it seemed to be, and kind of boiled it down to, um, it's an effort, a collaborative effort between the politicians, and we'll start at the federal level. And I believe very strongly that this extends into the state level, municipal level, county, and so forth. But it is a deliberate effort to divide us. And uh, through the what Tucker Carlson refers to as permanent Washington, which I think is brilliant. I don't know if he coined that or came up with it on his own, or if he brought that, if he took that from somebody else. But I think it's brilliant, and really that those two words we could spend hours and hours as to what that really means and the problems that are inherent to that concept. Um, a lot of this stuff I hope speaks to you very directly and is not really eye opening, but just kind of, yeah, that's right, because I think that we all feel this way. So again, the concept is the politicians, um, the lobbyists, permanent Washington, the complicit media, in many cases, the complicit corporations, certainly the executives at the top pushing federal government agendas, um, and various other players have created a system that is allowing corruption and really money laundering, um, which is, the use of our tax dollars, our precious tax dollars, our hard-earned money as Americans, and as a slush fund to enrich themselves. And it's a game. It's a deliberate effort, and there is, I believe, quite strongly that there is bribery, and there is um, blackmail, and a lot of nefarious and disgusting behavior and activities that goes into all of this. And 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 we can get into this, and we will. And I would like to try to shine a light on all of this, and expose those who are participating in illegal behaviors and activities, um, for their own enrichment, and using their power and influence, and 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 money, and ability to affect policy, um, for their own personal gain, and for the gain of their friends and family members, and others, and again, all for the continual furthering of their own um, wealth. So, okay, bold statements, but also so bold, yet probably not falling on anyone in a way that makes you think, oh, that's ridiculous. This is yet another conspiracy theory. It just makes sense to people, because it makes sense because we have eyes. We've been paying attention. We're not the idiots that you seem to think that we are. I'm not grouping every one of all of those categories into the bigger problem, and the bigger issue. I'm not grouping that. I'm not trying to identify 100% of the participants, 100% of the politicians, the lobbyists, the corporate actors, the media um, participants, but I am implicating the vast majority. Corporations is a little bit different. There's a lot that goes into that. Again, these are broad strokes right now. This is a 30,000-foot view, but I think the message will be received that it's a system that we all know exists. Nothing that we're going to find as we explore this, or many others who are exploring the illegal behavior, whether it's a whistleblower or a group that pursues, truth and justice in the American way. They'll find the same that they have found, and they expose, and they highlight and report on, and we think, oh, that's not great. I knew that was going on, and we see the effect. We shake our heads. We talk about it the next day at work, and then we kind of move along, and the system continues to persist. The news cycle turns over, and people are on to different things. We all have busy lives, and we all have we're just trying to get through tough days, and tough lives, and tough relationships, and tough work environments, and hopefully we can put a lot of joy and peace and prosperity and love and all the good things that go into a well-lived life as well. We try for that anyway, and that again is the commonality, one of the strong commonalities amongst us. And I think that's really important. I think that's foundational to why um, I know that we agree on the main areas of what it takes to put a society together where everyone can feel like they are a valuable part of that society. Um, so, when you look around and you see, you pay attention to the news, and you uncover the lies, the intentional lies that the media uses to, for example, cover up Joe Biden's mental health and his cognitive deficiencies and cognitive decline. Uh, you have to keep going. You have to continue to look at why that is. What is it that? And let's focus on the media initially. There's a lot of areas that this is going to go. There's a lot to cover. It's a gigantic economy. It's a gigantic country. There are so many competing interests. There are so many people, different types of people, different communities, different parts of the country are very different from other parts of the country. Um, I believe strongly that the founders of this country, the framers of the Constitution, did a terrific job, and it's all right there for us to operate as different people in different states, and with common goals, again inherent in good people um, and the American people, and I do believe we're different. I do believe the spirit of um, and the genetic makeup of the American is different, and I think the founders of the country knew that. And I also believe that this country was founded in covenant with God, and I think there's plenty of evidence and um, historical references to support that. Ultimately, what that means to me, and I think to a lot of people, and the 76 is a level of agreement. It's also a hat tip to 1776 and the founding of our country and trying to get back to that. But what I think it all means is that we have the ability to get back to who we are, and we have a lot more commonality than difference. Um, but what we see in the media, again, to focus on the media initially, is division, intentional division. When there are lies being told, there's a reason, and we have to chase those down and figure out why that is the case. When our politicians are lying to us, we have to chase that down, and we have to find out why that is the case. Um, the media used to be, and I told a friend of mine uh, long ago that it's the media who failed us, and this is going back probably 5, 6, 7 years. This is Mark Hafley, so I'll ensure that I get one follower by referencing him directly. But he and I had many conversations about this as we watched the country slowly fade away, and it is the media that failed us. They allowed they weren't performing their role as reporters, as journalists. It's a joke what a lot of these people try to pass off as journalism, and it's really quite embarrassing as somebody with an IQ above even 90, um, to be treated in a way that we wouldn't be able to understand, that we're being lied to directly to our face very, very often. And I again contend that it's due to self-interest and the desire to enrich oneself, and often at the expense of many others. And I just don't think it's okay anymore. And I don't think that 76% of us think it's okay anymore, because while these politicians and lobbyists and special interests and tit for tat agreements and pay to play agreements and selling of influence and blackmail and extortion and bribery, all these, words that I remember as a child think, oh my gosh, those are, how horrible, can't go on that often. Like those must be really, you know, um, things that are very few and far between in terms of how frequently it happens. And I think it's just, I think not only does it happen often, but it's so customary and woven into permanent Washington that, um, the participants may not even really think it's wrong anymore. And that's kind of an interesting idea to maybe for us to explore. But there's a lot of failure of the people of the people of the United States who are suffering, and at the very least deserve fewer of their hard-earned dollars to go toward such a corrupt system. For what? And at the same time, while debt is ballooning and there hasn't been a balanced budget in decades, and it's just kind of accepted, and it doesn't need to be. We can be better than that, and we are better than that. And it's about time we take our country back. And I think that we can take our country back through the restoration of debate and understanding that truth is important, and when we have those truths, we need to build upon them, and maybe not discard them or relitigate them unnecessarily. I have a one of the concepts that I've been working on or have settled on, and how we do this is, the restoration of debate is an important component, and I have, I reside where I reside on the political spectrum, and I have a very good friend of many years, dating back to high school, who is going to join me in kind of a crossfire. If you remember the old CNN crossfire, or even Hannity and Colmes, any kind of point counterpoint kind of format. We're going to get into these and allow each side to kind of present our topics, our arguments, and so forth, and ultimately reach agreements on these debate topics. I do think that I've often referred to this as a radio style format. I've loved radio. I've been kind of a student of radio for, I guess, all of my life. Talk radio, news and sports, certainly the music radio format as well, but not as much to learn there. But I love the community involvement, the community engagement, the on-site, the mobile broadcasts, and really engaging with the community. I think it's important, and I think it's really important to the 76 that is the style that we move forward with. I really want to see a lot of community engagement in what it is that we're doing. So, I envision live shows, live streams where there is interaction from the audience. I think that we will have engagement, and maybe even kind of the ability to jump on as a guest to talk about a specific topic, maybe even live, like a radio show. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do that. And I think that there's some pitfalls with that, I think, especially with a live video feed. But my point is really to bring us all into this movement and to make a difference in how our government operates. I think we're all sick and tired of the politicians coming into Congress as regular people. And maybe they campaign on the, hey, I'm just a regular bartender from a New York borough, and I just want to represent the people. And fast forward uh, I don't know how long um, AOC has been in office, but I think it's 10 or 12 years, maybe longer. And now she has a net worth of 10 or 12 million dollars. And I think we're tired of seeing the, a politician winning an election as a regular person and then becoming incredibly wealthy over a sometimes 20-30 year period on a salary that shouldn't produce that type of net worth. So how does that happen? Well, I think we all have our suspicions. I certainly do. And I want to get to the bottom of it. One of my suspicions is and how that happens is selling influence to foreign, often bad actors. Uh, a recent case is former New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez, who has a checkered history, to say the least. He gets caught with, I think, over $1 million of cash and Egyptian gold in his master master bedroom closet. His excuse and defense, I think, was along the lines of, "I really care about saving." Okay, and I don't, maybe he didn't trust the banks, or I don't know that he offered any explanation for why it was clearly Egyptian sourced. But there's also an angle there that involves his wife, who um, has some distasteful history as well, and I think also connected to those same Egyptian officials. So I want to be careful in how I talk about a lot of these things, because I'm certainly not interested in spreading lies or even half truths. I'm interested in getting to the truth, because I do believe the truth sets you free. I do believe that as a country, the truth will prevail. And I think that we all kind of know we've got kind of a rough draft. We have a running start on getting there. We all know that the healthcare system is an absolute disaster. We pay ridiculous amounts of money for insurance, and the posturing that goes on within the political system to kind of identify what that insurance really is, with statements like everyone is entitled to health care. Okay, well, that's not what health insurance is, and I don't think that everybody is entitled to, unlimited amounts of health care. And I don't think somebody who doesn't take care of themselves and eat right and exercise is entitled to the same health care as somebody who does. We all have choices. That's one of the beautiful things about this country. Um, we have choices. We have free will. We can take our resources, our earned income, our savings, our resources, and spend those resources however we choose. Each of those decisions has its own set of consequences, and we have to be held accountable to those consequences. And not to say that there shouldn't be any type of safety net, and various types of safety nets. Again, back to a functioning society that we can kind of all agree upon. Um, so a lot of, I think there's a lot there, and I guess I probably won't know how much I've rambled on in this until I go back and review it. But the concept and the idea and the movement, again, is as the vast majority of our population, our society, the vast majority of Americans, I believe, agree on how a society needs to be shaped and operated, what the rules are, what how important law and order is, or not. what level of law and order is important in a well-functioning society, what role morality has and different types of morality in a society, what criminal justice needs to look like, what we do have the rights to as Americans, what we should pay for at the federal level, at the state level, at local levels, and how much government really should be involved in our lives. How much should government control of our lives versus the private sector? That's a and in a capitalistic way. I don't think it will be difficult to reach agreement. Some topics, some areas are obviously more complicated and more challenging to reach agreement than others, and that's okay. We don't need to reach agreement on abortion, for example, day one, or maybe anything. We have bigger fish to fry, and there are much more important areas. And I say that with very strong feelings about that issue. But in terms of operating a society and finding common ground with respect to law and order and criminal justice and the use of public funds and the oversight of the use of public funds, and how actively we pursue nefarious behavior amongst our elected officials, who often parade around and demand public adoration for their service, while they're stealing our tax dollars. I mean, come on. So we know this stuff. And we all know that it exists. And we continue going about our daily lives because that's what we need to do. It's not something that we all want to pay attention to. When I was a kid, I started following politics when I was younger, in high school, I guess, and loved Ronald Reagan. I thought he was just such an amazing communicator. He clearly cared for the American people. He had a tough job when he was elected. Almost didn't make re-election, but he stuck with what he knew to be right and true, and it paid off. And it was a landslide victory for his second term. I just loved how he approached his job. Kind of lost my train of thought as to why I started talking about Reagan. I'll talk about him a lot. But the politicians today are not, and I don't believe that permanent Washington didn't exist in some form back then. I think it most certainly did, and I think it has for a very long time. He was a proponent of smaller government, which I think is important, certainly at the federal level, and I think many of us would agree, and I think we should reach agreement at that 76% level, that government should be pushed down to the most local level that it can be pushed down to, because those are the people who understand where that money goes. Those are the people who understand where the greatest use of those dollars is going to be, and who will benefit, who needs to benefit, who doesn't need to benefit, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's, to me, very obviously, a reason why our federal government, I think, has grown to over 40% of our employment in the country, and maybe loosely tied to GDP. This is where I'll get in trouble, not being completely prepared and having more of a free form kind of introduction or discussion about it. But the point is, it's too big, and it's gotten way too big, and it's become a machine that kind of runs itself, and President Trump referred to it as the swamp before his first term, and there's obviously a lot of truth to that, and I don't think that it's so big and so convoluted and so intertwined and so dangerous to try to address that we shouldn't try to address it. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's because I keep coming back to the fact that our hard-earned dollars are being wasted by people who don't have our interests in mind, yet they're elected by us through maybe a system that isn't perfect, maybe a system that lends to the ultimate problem, but that can be changed and improved upon as well. So one of the things that I think, that I've settled on, that I think is really an important part of this overall movement and effort is something I call microagreements. We have, for various reasons, and I think it's obviously intentional. Most of it is intentional. Debate isn't something that we do much anymore. In fact, for the longest time, it was you couldn't express your view of any given issue that was dissenting from what was accepted by the media and accepted by the corporate world, corporate America, which was very often it was dangerous to do so if you valued your job. And that I knew was just obviously wrong. I mean, the First Amendment is freedom of speech. Even that's come under attack. And it's been a little while, but I like to refer to University of California, Berkeley as the birthplace and the death place of free speech. I mean, most people agree that it was the birthplace in many regards. I think it is also the death place of free speech because of it was the first campus that I remember so aggressively looking to cancel conservative voices from even appearing and speaking on campus, to maybe offer the other viewpoint. The public university system is certainly in need of scrutiny, and the Trump administration is getting after that fight, and I love to see it. And I don't view it any differently than shining a light on an issue that needs to be talked about. I think that I would love to see a true debate between somebody who understands Harvard's position, obviously maybe somebody from Harvard directly, their position well and can speak to it very well and wants to defend Harvard's position, versus the Trump administration's view and the Justice Department's view that they are, their position. We'll get into it, but the position that Harvard is violating statutes or covenants or terms that can't be violated to continue receiving federal funds for whatever purpose. Or generally, I think one of the big claims is fostering an environment that promotes, and the most recent example is anti-Semitism and promotion of terrorist behavior. It's not such an easy discussion, but we need to have that discussion because there is, I believe, agreement amongst the 76% of us who should be shaping the society. So how do we get there? Well, I started to talk about microagreements. Whatever we need to do, however low we need to go in finding agreement at that 76% level. we should do that. And we should establish those micro agreements as foundational building blocks for further discussion, debate, and greater agreements. Sometimes a micro agreement. Some of the examples I use are violent criminals should not go unpunished. I think that violent criminals should be punished, and I think that very easily 76% of us would agree with that. Okay, so if that's the case, why do we have certain jurisdictions that have argued under the banner of racism, I think is the primary reason, that a violent criminal should not have to post cash bond because it's racist, because I guess the assertion is that certain underprivileged races don't have money or are less likely to have the amount of money that would be required to post that cash bond. Well, that's ridiculous. And there are so many flaws in that argument. And frankly, I believe, and I think it's, very clearly evident that racism has become a term and an accusation that has been used to stop the conversation. Anything that's used to stop the conversation is not a good idea for a society that is intended to function well, where people get along, where neighbors help out neighbors, where the politicians, the elected officials, the public servants do their job because they like being public servants, not because it's a lottery ticket to drive generational wealth. We see you, obviously, and we're going to call all of you out. I'll give you the platform to defend yourself, but you're going to be called out. At the federal level, we have 535 legislators, elected officials, representatives, and senators who are supposed to be our best and brightest, affecting policy, engaging in debate, weighing the pros and cons of different laws, and coming up with policy to benefit the people that they serve, the public that they serve, as such noble public servants. Well, you're not. The vast majority of you are most certainly not. Many of you don't have an IQ above 80, and we're going to get into that. I have some favorites that I'm going to point out, and a few of them who I will talk about soon enough. I've been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. It's really hard to believe many of them continue to get reelected. Just as offensive as are the public servants who are clearly there to enrich themselves, to build their own power, their own influence nationally and internationally, which gets into national security issues. And we see violations of our national security for personal gain from a lot of these politicians, not just senators and legislators, but also lobbyists, powerful lobbyists, and other members of the administrations and the staff of those representatives and senators who are unelected and often drive a lot of the legislation. And I mean, there's so much to get into. But it all tends to come back to that, and as kind of the most offensive and unacceptable set of behaviors and group of people. So we're calling them out. Ultimately, what we really want to do is understand, how do we drive a better healthcare system? It's broken. It's so broken. And there's a lot of stories about how PBMs, how pharmacy benefit management companies have policies in place, and sometimes, as I understand it, are supported by gag orders, preventing pharmacists from letting an elderly person, to prove the point, letting them know that if they didn't use their Medicare card, or maybe even secondary insurance prescription card, that they instead chose to pay by cash, that the cash price would be lower than their insured copay. They're not allowed to tell that elderly person that they can do that and pay $5 for their life-saving prescription instead of $15. Well, I think, aside from the people that work for PBMs and whatever government official is connected to that practice in a financial way, in a way that benefits them financially, I think we're probably at 100% agreement that we should not prevent people from telling our elderly how they can save $10 a month. It may not sound like a lot, but there are a lot of people out there who know that that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money to them. We hear these stories of how people suffer, and it's heart-wrenching. And sometimes we may see it in a social media post or whatever story that goes around by email, or just people talking amongst their friend group, and it hits us, and it's terrible. How can we fix that? Well, this is how we fix it. And we have to start somewhere, and I want everybody involved. And I think we cover energy policy, and government overall. I mean, Doge has highlighted fraud, waste, and abuse and corruption in hard to believe ways. And I believe strongly that they've only scratched the surface. And I know that there's a lot of relationships and contracts, and it's convoluted. It's very complicated. I get that, but it doesn't mean that we can't get after it and work together and figure it out. And again, community style, radio style. This turned out to be a lot more serious than I thought it would be. I actually am I think comedy is really important in life. Levity is a good thing. It helps ease the tension of difficult days and difficult times. I plan to be a lot more funny than I was during this initial show here, but it's hard to talk about a lot of this and joke about it, because it's a struggle. People struggle, and we'll get to the stats. But 60% of the population is one paycheck away from disaster for not only them but their family. You hear that all the time. Maybe it's only 40%. Maybe it's only 20%. It shouldn't be 10%. What about the child? The number of children in this country. I mean, look at the wealth we have in this country, and the children who are hungry. It's just not acceptable. And it's so unacceptable when we know what is being squandered at the federal level and the state level and the municipal level, while these politicians, and I will save the adjectives that will be quite colorful as we get into it, I'll save those for later, but for now, we'll just call them politicians who, the vast majority, certainly, I don't know how many are not attorneys, but don't think that that's a coincidence. And we'll get after them as well. I lost my train of thought when I start thinking about the politicians and the lawyers. Comedy. We'll get there. We have to have fun. There's a lot of humor in just the ridiculous nature of some of the things that we're going to talk about, and the ridiculous nature of a lot of the areas of our society. We see it all the time. We know it. I know that this message doesn't fall on probably anyone with I don't really see that. I don't get it. Everybody knows. We see you. And I'm tired of it. And everybody I've talked to, and it's been, at this point, it's been hundreds. May not seem like a lot, but it's a representative sample to me. And I know that there is momentum here, and we're going to roll with it, and we're going to drive this movement. And I want everybody to join in, and the more the merrier, and ideas are welcome. Any discussion is welcome. Anybody wants a seat with a reasonable set of expectations on what needs to be a part of participating, certainly in a video or even audio format, but there's room. I just don't think it is hard to reach agreement on the main areas of our society that we can all kind of move forward with. And one of the big things that I forgot is, so why do we all think that we hate each other? Going back to the original point, it's because the 24 in the extremes, the 12% on each side, if you just look at a normal distribution and think about liberals and conservatives, again, as the most obvious way to illustrate the battle or the conflict or the disagreement. The extreme views of the 12% is what's on the air. That's what we hear. That's what we think. As liberals, we think conservatives are driven by those extreme views. And as conservatives, we think that the liberals are driven by those extreme views, all of them. So, and that's by design. They keep us at each other's throats, think that we're so divisive, or that we're so divided, and that we really hate everything about one another, so that our attention is diverted, and we are not focused on what's important, which is, why does Bob Menendez have $1 million of Egyptian gold and cash stuffed in his suit pockets? And how did that happen? And who knew about it? And what else has been going on in the Menendez household? We'll get into some of that. And who else is doing this? And how are they doing it? And how many people are involved? And is that what USAID is funding? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, one micro agreement at a time, one issue at a time. I think some fun, some comedy, because you gotta laugh. Never lose your sense of humor. That was a Caddyshack reference, I think. I love movie quotes. I love movie references, so there'll be plenty of that. And hopefully a lot of guests, a lot of great guests, and fun discussion and community involvement. And that's what we're going to do. And that's the 76. Appreciate you listening, and look forward to many more of these. And this is how you end a recording, as it turns out. Thanks again.